All right, well, it has been a while. Hopefully it's not too windy for this video, but I'm back at Make Projects. I've been down here a couple of times, but just wanted to go over the agroforestry system, show some of the progress I've made and some of the mistakes, some of the things I've learned just so far. So let's see, we'll flip this around. We're looking at sort of the first line, that lab section. It's right here by the front of the farm, next to the parking lot. And I'm running the irrigation right now. But I'll talk a little bit about what I've done. We've gone through, and I'm doing, well, as fast as I can, sort of a global planting with the aloes. A lot of these guys have bounced back, looking really nice and green. Some of the ones that have gone in more recently, still sort of that brown red color, but I know they're going to come back. And I've then gone in and, well, we can see one of the first mistakes or lessons. Down here we've got one of the eucalyptus that I've dug up. It seems to have died back to the point where it's now good, but what I learned from this guy right here is eucalyptus does not like being bare rooted when dug up. And so I've made that little bit of an edit with some of the other randomly planted saplings that I'm able to collect, and they're doing much better. I've also now been able to start planting some of the sort of coppice sublines. So right here we're working with what naturally seeds, but I've taken cuttings, rooted them. These are almond leaf willows. I've got about 3 in this line. And then I've come in and we've got some African blue basil. Now, I'm of 2 minds. I think originally I wanted to do 5 of these basket willows per coppice line. Looking at the spacing now, I'm kind of liking the look of 3 and then filling in that African blue basil the rest of the way down. We've got a little acacia here that is at half size because it unfortunately got snapped in half. Had some pretty aggressive wind recently. That, or a lot of people on site, a lot of young kids, could have just been snapped. You know, that's part of understanding space that you're working in. But that gives a general idea of what we're going to be doing is coppice sublines. The basket willow is great in our environment. It does perfectly well without any irrigation. It's basically a bit of a weed species in the area, and so if it can sustain with irrigation, without irrigation, that's perfect for what we're doing. And then in between that, we're going to be focusing on those culinary productive herbs. So we got the blue basil, we'll be doing sweet basil, sage, lavender, anything I can get my hands on. I'm currently rooting out some rosemary cuttings. So that's going to lead into a little bit more of sort of the larger lesson here. These things are taking a lot longer. I'm not buying plants. Everything I'm doing sort of that beg, borrow, cheat, and steal attempt to get my hands on as many plants as possible. And so a lot of it is cuttings, rooting, waiting for germination on seeds. I've also gone in, let's see, in total we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of aloe planted, and we've also had another delivery of free municipal mulch. A volunteer day was able to come through and weed most everything here. You can see behind me it's a little bit more like what it looked like before they were out here, and then they were able to get down quite a bit of mulch, so that's super helpful. Weeding is one of the parts that, especially these new tree lines, is one of the most labor intensive parts of the management. And so, you know, I consider myself blessed for that being taken care of for me. I'm sure I'll be doing it here again. Though we haven't had a lot of rain down here, so who knows, we might not get crazy germination. What else do we have? Luckily I got a couple of little sweet potato slips that were just self-starts out on the main farm block, so threw them in there, especially down on where the sort of chop and drop hot dog bun is going to be. So those guys will not mind getting covered up and then just vining out not so much production, more on just keeping that ground cover, that moisture, yeah, that humid microclimate to help break down the woody material that's in there. All right, now I spent today doing more of those aloe plantings. I also managed to throw in there I'm not sure if we can see that, a cheeky little sugarcane plant that I was holding on to. I've taken a couple of little comfrey suckers that have just gone in the ground. They're looking a little sad, but hopefully they'll bounce back. And then we've even got some borage. I also went through, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to find them. I've been spending 3 months waiting on these loquat seeds to germinate. This tray didn't do too well, but I did about 4 trays. I think I should have 200-ish seedlings ready. And there's one little guy down there by the aloe. Hopefully that's visible as I'm spraying the phone with the sprinklers. Found out that this little wattle plant as well does not like being bare rooted, so we're gonna move forward being a little bit more delicate with when we dig up these little suckers or self-germinations in the future. So I'd say things are coming together nicely. I've got a lot of weedy material that I can use to create some of these hot dog lines. It seems like I'll fairly reliably have access to some of this municipal mulch. Get that cleaned up. Now, I don't know how regularly, but we get quite a lot of it at once, so it's going to be a little bit of a boom and a bust cycle there, but it's nice to know that I'm getting extra green material, especially to kick the project off. As we go long term, you know, the site will become self-sufficient in producing its own green material. Also got a cheeky little ginger in there today. It's just come up from the original transplant, so that's been barely holding on, but enough to get this little sucker to come up. And of course, with the seed mix I used, I ended up getting some red vein sorrel in there as well. So we're just bit by bit piecing this whole thing together. Now, another part of what I've been doing here is sort of a wider site design. And so I'll walk you through a little bit of it now. It got covered up because, again, you know, volunteers came through, spread a bunch of mulch, super thankful, but I'd only just really roughed out a little bit of a trail through here because there's a lot of education that goes on, a lot of kids camps, and so having a little winding trail through the tree lines, you know, it's going to interrupt some of the plantings, but ultimately we want to be able to create green spaces for people to enjoy, to understand what we're doing. And so the rough idea is to then use some of this space around here. We'll figure it out as we go, but to build sort of a green walled area, an outdoor classroom, you know, a hosting space made purely through the foliage that we hope to eventually get planted in here. So we'll see. I've also been collecting a bunch of different sort of weed species seeds. We have the wild tree tobacco that grows pretty prolifically here, so I've gone around and spread some seed of that. We'll see how that works. I didn't seed start any of it, so may have to go back again. That might be added to the list of mistakes or lack of successes. And then I can never remember the name, but is it carob, canola, castor? There we go. The castor plant. We've got a lot of seeds of those. Again, an invasive. Seeds can be toxic, but long term they're going to get shaded out by the rest of the system. We need to establish some microclimates, some wind barriers, moisture control, all that sort of stuff. So I've gone through and planted a bunch of those seeds. And funny enough, I've already forgotten the name again. It just won't stick in my brain no matter how many times I hear it. So there's a little bit of an update of the system. I think visually you can see that it's coming together a little bit more, but nice to learn early on that this is going to take a lot longer than I thought, because again, 3 months just to get those loquat seedlings just to sprout. Maybe there were smarter ways to do it, but I have a background in microgreens, and so just throwing 200 seeds in per tray and stacking them up and waiting for them to germinate seemed like a logical thing to do. So we'll see how it goes. I think next steps are, ideally I wasn't going to purchase anything for this because it's volunteering. So not only am I not getting paid, but it's not mine, I don't even work here, but a lot of this is experience for me, learning. And so I decided I'm gonna need some way to at least kickstart a global planting, get more green material, especially leafy green material. I have plenty of woody brown material. And so I've gone and ordered some sorghum Sudan grass, and that should be arriving soon. So we're gonna try and go out, plant those lines with the sorghum. And long term, who knows, we certainly have the space to. I think we're on something like 14-foot spacing between these rows, and even between these trees. It's planted on a bit of a grid. We might be able to get some additional garden beds moving in here, some 3-foot wide beds, just like the rest of the farm has. So the plan continues. I'm really excited, just starting to see this first line coming together. And I'm getting more and more of a feel for sort of the maybe unintuitive density you're going for. Every time I think, oh, maybe I should go plant something further out, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm gonna stick to the plan. I'm just gonna stick it all in this first line. And of course, that's gonna result in all sorts of lessons as well. But the nice thing is, things can always come out. It's harder to get things started in the first place. So we'll just keep going. Yep, there's my check-in. We'll see if I ever get around to posting this stuff. Have a good one.